Right. I want to close, because you know I'm going long over my time, by also throwing out a discussion in terms of how then do we also assist the teachers, because it has to be in the management individual effectiveness of the teacher. And as I said, if I could just wave a magic wand and we could get the class sizes right, as in prep school down to 25, it probably would make life easier. But then teachers are going to make the point that if most of the traditional high school right now, even in traditional high school, you have 40 students in a class. Primary have 60 sometimes. But there's a lot of diversity, some schools to a greater extent. And I've asked the question from even a process flow type, if you're doing a manufacturing. I mean, is the process right? Is it possible? You raised it before, Dr. Hillard. That is part of the hindrance, that it is not as effective. If it is that you have homogeneous classrooms, right, with the ability levels and all the other psychosocial things are fairly homogeneous, probably. Like a university can lecture 1,000 persons. But in a regular classroom with diversity, is it possible? Now, perhaps if you had assistant teachers or the level of technology and support, that may be possible. So, my difficulty is, there is the desire, based on where we are now, a desirability. In fact, we almost know the answers to these questions. But it seems to me it's going to take us, and let me throw it on the table, probably another 20 years or 30 years to get all that right, to build more schools and get the ratio right. So how then do we manage, talking about accountability, how do we manage now? What are the strategies that are going to reach those kids at risk? What strategies are going to be used to differentiate instruction so the youngster, the young men, the boys are also reached and are energized and infused in terms of learning, so we can achieve the 60-40 ratio or the 50-50 ratio. So, much food for thought. But, alas, hope. Because if it is that we are now 71% internal literacy, Dr. Gordon, and we are likely to achieve the 85% target by 2010 internal literacy, there's hope. There's hope. So I agree with you that infrastructure, the same thing I've said to my boy here, build all the new classrooms and paint up the place. But until you're reaching the students, that's what education is about. How do you allow every youngster to maximize his or her full potential? And so there has to be some creativity that the support, and I've said to the minister, frankly, that we don't have to wait until we have, if you're going to build these additional schools, and by 2030, you therefore have to beef up your support, Dr. Gordon, within the school. So you give the schools more, whether it's teacher assistant or whatever, because you're going to employ these people anyway. So even now, so you may be have to pull kids out of class, have some special focus intervention, as Literacy 1, 2, 3 has proven, that where you can target students who are at risk and have focus intervention, then you can have improved results. But it also, in the same context of performance and accountability, because if there are no objectives, there are no targets to be achieved, then if it is business as usual, and who want to learn, learn, and who don't want to learn, don't learn. And so that, I think, is a context of which we can further deliberate on this issue of performance and accountability in education. I want to leave one last point. And irrespective of all of the blasting of education in Jamaica, I challenge anybody to check out which has been the most sustained, improved sector in this country. And I'm confident that 2030 this Jamaica land we love, education will revolutionize this blessed nation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ruel. That sort of lays the foundation of the discussion. I think all of us have our own points of reference. Everybody here in this room has an interest in, or most in fact have an active involvement in education, and we know what the issues are. That's why we're here today. And I'm grateful to you for sort of in a very succinct way sort of outlining what are the key things we want to look at. Why don't we now widen the focus a bit and start to look abroad and see, well, you know, other countries have grappled with these same issues. How have they addressed them? So Jeff Priya very kindly is going to give us a presentation on framing this discussion in a broader context. Jeff?
It is a pleasure to be back in Jamaica, and it is a pleasure to be collaborating with CaPRI and UE and USAID in this event. I've got just 10 minutes, I think. My PowerPoint is a little longer than 10 minutes, so I'm going to try to focus on the central issues and not provide too much of the detail. If we could go to the next slide. What I want to say is that there are basically three questions I want to address this morning. First is, what is accountability in education? And that's the most important part of this. So if you take home nothing else from this discussion, please focus on point number one. Secondly, how far have we come? What's the experience been in Latin America? And I'm going to say a little bit about the United States. And then more generally, what worldwide are relatively successful education systems doing? So let's start with the first point. What is accountability in education? It means, and this is the most important statement, it means setting goals and holding people responsible for achieving them. Setting goals and holding people responsible for achieving them. And those people can be students, they can be parents, they can be teachers, principals, ministries, whatever is the most relevant. But that core idea of setting goals and holding people responsible for achieving them is the central issue. It means establishing clear incentives so that actors in a school system perform at an appropriate level. And the idea of accountability is to help ensure that schools provide the expected level of education. It's important to remember that. What we're after is certain levels of education. And accountability is a tool, not an end. It's a tool to make that happen. Accountability has three components. The first is setting clear and ambitious goals